guitar god Jimi Hendrix knew who Deep Purple were and admired them as a band. He saw Deep Purple and met them when they first came to the United States in October 1968 to support Eric Clapton's Cream on their goodbye tour. Jimi Hendrix was very good friends with Eric Clapton, and they used to go visit each other a lot and jam together at nightclubs. Could you imagine seeing that? When Deep Purple arrived in Los Angeles for their very first visit to the States on October 15, 1968, they were booked to support Eric Clapton's Cream on the trio's farewell tour. In the United States, people loved Deep Purple, and the band was received very well. But after just 3 concerts, Deep Purple, they were quickly kicked off the Cream tour, allegedly for fear of upstaging the headliners. Imagine that. The first show was at the Inglewood Forum in Los Angeles on October 18th. There's a recording of that show, and you can play it on YouTube, and it perfectly displays the ferocity with Deep Purple sprang onto the Los Angeles live scene. Amazing performance. And as a side note, the Forum was a favorite place of many rock bands because of the acoustics there, and Rush even played their last show at the Forum because they loved it so well. Now, people who attended that show say Deep Purple did a great show. No wonder why Cream got rid of them as the opening act. They came to see Cream, but were utterly blown away by Deep Purple's opening set. The closing song Deep Purple performed was Hey Joe, and Jimi Hendrix was there. How cool is that? So after the second LA show, Jimi Hendrix came backstage to congratulate the band and to tell Eric Clapton that Ritchie had blown him off stage. Oh my goodness. So back in those days, Ritchie Blackmore got the nickname Mr. Speed. He did insane improvisations on stage. He ran up and down the fretboard, did crazy bends all over the place, played arpeggios using sweep picking. His playing was incredible with his speed, exceptional technique. Every single note was picked and clearly distinguished from the one before and the one after. Looking at his fingers while he was playing was just amazing. Ritchie played a Gibson ES335 then, and maybe a little easier to play fast on than a Fender Strat. Many people nowadays don't realize just how great Blackmore was back in the day. Ritchie Blackmore was probably the first shredder on the rock music scene. I mean, ask Yngwie Malmsteen, he'll tell you. So after the concert, Hendrix invited Deep Purple to his house for a party that night. Deep Purple's roadie, Ian Hansford, said that it was the house where American actress, model, and Roman Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, a very beautiful woman, got murdered a year later in 1969. That was a really great party. Deep Purple had a great time hanging out with Jimi Hendrix and other guests. Actually, in the late 60s, Deep Purple were signed to Tetragrammaton Records, an American record label founded in 1968 by music industry executives Roy Silver, Bruce Post Campbell, Marvin Dean, and get this, comedian Bill Cosby. The label released the first 3 Deep Purple albums in the U.S. The label's most successful act was the band Deep Purple. The band had success in North America with a cover of Joe South's Hush, and by September 1968, the song had reached number 4 on the Billboard Top 100 in the United States. Quite a feat. The following month, Deep Purple were booked to support Cream on their goodbye tour. So when Deep Purple were kicked off the Cream tour, Tetragrammaton Records hurriedly got the band booked in local clubs before embarking on several weeks of lower-key scheduled support and headline dates. And eventually the band continued to tour America until Christmas. Deep Purple also made some TV appearances in the States, including a memorable spot on Hugh Hefner's Playboy After Dark. One of those TV appearances was also the Merv Griffith Show. Nick Simper, Deep Purple's bass player at the time, recalls, "We were the only band to do 2 numbers on the Merv Griffin Show. You only got 1 slot, but obviously Bill Cosby, Tetragram Records co-founder, pulled some strings and we got 2 songs on it, which was good because Ritchie forgot the intro to one of them and completely hit the wrong chords, came in totally wrong live television as well. It's understandable if you got a half hour before your next spot in the dressing room and complimentary beers going around, you won't be in great shape when you go out for the next bit." So Mitch Mitchell, Hendrix's drummer, was a good friend of Nick Simper's. A week later, after the Merv Griffin show, They were hanging out at a club in New York one night. Jimi Hendrix came in a few hours later. He came up to Nick Simper and said, "You know, I saw you on the Merv Griffin show. Great band. Loved it. That guitarist of yours is something special." So, Jimi Hendrix enjoyed Deep Purple very much as a band. He also loved Jon Lord's organ playing. Actually, Jon Lord was very fortunate to have a jam session with the guitar god Jimi Hendrix at a club in New York in early 1970, just several months before Hendrix died. Here's Jon Lord's recollection of that incredible event. "Yes, it's true that I had a jam session with the Divine Jim in or about the spring of 1970 at a club in New York City called Steve Paul's Scene Club. Jimmy used to go there almost nightly as a matter of course when he was at home in New York City, and one night I was sitting having a drink when he came over and reintroduced himself. We had first met in 1968 in Los Angeles after the Cream Deep Purple concert in Inglewood, and asked if I would play organ for a bit of a jam. It was with Stephen Stills on bass, Buddy Miles on drums, and get this, Dave Mason on sax. Afterwards, he asked if I'd be there the next night, and if so, would I like to do it again. I did, and it was equally enjoyable. 2 great and memorable nights, at least for me. I said good night to Jimmy, see ya to him after that second night, but sadly, I never saw him again." Glenn Hughes, a former Deep Purple vocalist and bass player, says that Ritchie Blackmore always used to talk about Jimi Hendrix a lot. In the interviews, Ritchie Blackmore often makes contradictory statements. He once claimed, "I didn't have any inspirations from guitarist. It went more into inspiration from violinist. I don't listen to too much rock and roll, really. Jimi Hendrix was good, and I like Cream." But in some other interviews, Ritchie Blackmore admits that Jimi Hendrix was a great inspiration to him. Here are some quotes from interviews with Ritchie Blackmore. "I was impressed by Hendrix. Not so much by his playing as his attitude. He wasn't a great player, but everything else about him was brilliant. Even the way he walked was amazing. His guitar playing, though, was always a little bit weird." Imagine Ritchie saying that about Hendrix. But he also says Hendrix inspired him, but he was also more into Wes Montgomery. He was also into the Allman Brothers and those albums at those times. "I really admired Jimi Hendrix, and I really loved Vanilla Fudge. So we just tried to integrate the two. We did Hey Joe and a lot of standards because we didn't have a lot of writing going on. I'd never written a tune before 1969, when I started feeling my way and came up with a few ideas. Everybody steals. It's healthy to steal. The thing is to disguise who you're stealing from. I used to steal a lot from Jimi Hendrix. We did borrow from Hendrix a lot. Jimi Hendrix taught me an awful lot." So Ritchie also confessed that he loved Jimi Hendrix's tremolo bar use, and that inspired him to use his tremolo bar on his Fender Stratocaster. He took that from Hendrix and used it throughout the album in rock. Ritchie Blackmore told a story in 1968. He was at the club Whiskey A Go Go here in Hollywood on Sunset Strip, and Jimi Hendrix was there. They were all getting drunk. Harvey Mandel was playing on stage. Jim Morrison was carried out because he was shouting abuse at the band. It was so funny, Ritchie recalls. Then Harvey Mandel started doing tapping. That was actually the first time Ritchie saw somebody playing tapping, and everybody was saying, "What the hell is he doing?" Even the audience stopped dancing. So, that was the story on Jimi Hendrix and Deep Purple. Ritchie Blackmore is one of the greatest rock guitar innovators whose guitar solo on Highway Star was so amazing for its time as Eddie Van Halen's Eruption later.